Everybody, so today we're going to be working on our Copic Coloring Card Kit for October, and it features this cute CC Design stamp, Vampy Hansel. Isn't he adorable? Love him. So I've already stamped my image on Nina 80-pound solar white cardstock with Memento Tuxedo black ink. So let's get to coloring. Alright, so I wanted to have my vampire have a little bit lighter skin this time, so I'm going to use E00, E000, and E000 to color him. And I'm going to start with E00. And I'm going to start with his hands, and I'm going to make his hands have some shadows down here at the bottom. And then I'm going to grab E00 and lightly feather over that line. And then I'm going to finish those up with E000. And I'm going to brush down just so I don't go out of the lines. And that skin tone is pretty light, but that's what I wanted him to have, the washed out look, so that's what I picked this time. And then we're going to go up here and do his face, and for his face I'm going to start with E00. And I'm going to start just by giving his side of his face some shadows, and go right down here along the bottom. And you want to get up here by his hair. His hair is going to cast a shadow on his face. Maybe get a little bit inside of his ear. And then I'm going to grab E000 and I'm going to brush over that line that I just laid down. A little bit in his ear. I'm going to get just a little bit on this side of his eye too. And then I'm going to grab E000 and color over the whole face. Just nicely blend those lines. Like that. And I wanted him to be washed out. If you want your image to be a little bit darker, you could go over it again, or you could use the regular colors that I usually use. So now let's go and do his hair. Alright, so for his hair, I wanted him to have reddish orange hair, so I'm going to use R59, R29, YR09, YR04, and YR02. And I'm just going to give him a few streaks here from the top of his hair. So I'm just going to lightly flick my R59 right along the top here, going in the grain, in the way that the hair would grow normally. I'm just flicking some on. And then I also want it to be a little bit darker down here on some of these, on the tip. So I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing down here. And again, you want to go in the direction that the hair grows. Like this one's kind of going like this, so I'm going to flick my color like that. And this one's kind of flicking this way, so I'm going to go ahead and flick mine that way. And this one's got a little curlicue, so we're just kind of bend it around here. Get this side. And let's get a little bit here behind his ear. Okay. And then I'm going to switch to R29. And I'm going to go over the top, so I'm going to start up here at the top, and again you're going to go in the direction the hair would grow, so I'm going to flick down. I'm going to get just a little bit up here on the top of this little curly cue he's got there, and then I'm just going to flick some down past the line I already laid down. And then we're going to do the same thing from the bottom. Flick some over here. I don't know what it is when I do red too. I always tend to stick my finger down on top of it, and then I get a little bit on my finger, and then I move it around. So you want to be careful that it's dry all the way before you touch it. And then I'm going to go to YR09, and again I'm going to start up here at the top, and I'm going to add a little bit to this little curly Q he's got up here. And then I'm going to brush some right after the R29, add some more streaks right here, and you're going to go down the same direction the hair grows, don't forget that. And then you'll go up from the bottom. It'll be a lot easier for you too to keep your hand out of the red, because you're going to be turning your image too. Me, I'm trying to hold it still so that it'll just go in one direction for you to watch. And then we're going to do YR04. We're going to go up here from the top. Just flick right over the top of those. And come up from the bottom. And then we're going to add YR02. Fill in some more of these spaces here. And you can also leave some white in there if you like to have that look on there. I'm going to go ahead and fill mine in because I just prefer for my hair to be colored all the way in. But you can leave some white spaces in there, and that adds some highlights in there. It makes it look really cute. And then just to make my hair a little bit more, after I've already blended it all, to give it a few hair streaks, I go back. Whoops, well let's get this little curly Q up here first. Finish coloring that just a little bit. I go back and add hair streaks with R59. So I'm going to go back up here at the top, and I'm just going to flick in some streaks of hair. Let me turn it a little bit so I can flick a little bit easier on this side. And I go down into the other colors. I don't mind that. I'm just trying to add some more realistic looking hair pieces. And I go do the same thing for down here at the bottom. Just lightly adding some more colors in there. Just give it a few strands of hair. And you can add as few or as many as you like. Just got to kind of look at your image and say, do I need to add a few more? And then I'm going to go ahead and add a few of the R29 stripes too. And I'll go down past these R59 ones I just laid in and just put a few little streaks in there. And same for the bottom. And I try to keep my pen a little bit straighter when I'm doing the flicking for the hair streaks. Try to keep it so that I just use just the very pointy end of the pen. Just like that. And doesn't that look really cute? I love that orangish red hair. Alright, so next we're going to work on his cape and his pants. And if you got your kit already, I forgot to put on the directions, I put outside of coat, and I should have also put pants on there. So if you don't have that on there, you can just scribble it on. So we're going to use C10, C8, C6, and B99. So let's start with C10. And I'm going to do his cape first. So he's got his little collar up here. And I'm going to start by laying down my C10 just right next to his face. And I'm going to do the same thing on this side. Just going to give it a little line right there next to his cheek. Okay, and then I'm going to grab C8, and I'm just going to lightly feather that line just a little bit. And remember, if your red's still wet, let it dry a little bit. Or sometimes I'll put a little piece of paper on top of it too to keep my finger from getting in it and making a big old mess. And then we'll fill that in with C6. And we'll get this corner. And then I'm going to grab, I'm going to start over with C10, and we're going to go down here and we're going to do his cape. And I want his cape to be darkest up here at the top. So I'm going to go ahead and lay down my C10 up here at the top. So I'm going to lightly flick down. As I'm flicking it, it's getting lighter as it comes down here to the end. So it's the darkest up here where I touch my pen, and as I flick down, my pen kind of automatically, my hand automatically lifts it up a little bit, so it's a little bit lighter there. And then I'm going to grab C8, and I'll lay that down about kind of in the middle where it's, for me, it's the color starts to change. The pen starts to lighten up down here, so I'm going to lay my pen right there. And I flick down some more, and again it gets lighter towards the end. And be careful around his hand. And I'm going to go ahead and put this one right around his hand too, because his hand's going to cast a shadow, so I'm going to add just a little bit on there. Add just a little bit more. And then I'm going to grab C6. I'm just going to add that again on top of the C8. Blend my line just a little bit, and then so I don't color on through the lines, I'm going to flip it over and I'm going to brush up. I tend not to get so much out of the lines if I'm starting with my ink right next to the line a little bit more. Okay. And then, black's not really black. I'm going to add some blue onto it. So I've got my B99 pen, and I'm going to just go ahead right here next to his cheek. I'm going to add just a little bit of blue right here. Same for this side of his collar. Add just a little bit of blue tint right in there. And then for his collar, where I laid down the C10, I'm just going to go ahead and brush my B99 right on top. And bring that down. And that's going to give it a nice blue cast. I know you probably can't see it very well on the video, but when you look at your own image, you're going to have a nice blue shadow on there. So next, let's go ahead and do his jeans. So we're going to start with C10, and I want my jeans to be darkest right here in the crease of his pants. And he's got a couple of little lines here, so I'm going to draw those. And his shirt's going to cast a shadow, so I'm going to go ahead and get underneath that. And then for this side, I'm going to do the back of his jeans. And I'm going to do again the little crease right here in the middle. And under his shirt. And then he's also got these great lines, so I'm going to go ahead and color right on top of those. And then I'm going to grab C8. And I'm just going to brush out on this side just a little bit and go over those lines, those little crease lines again. And I'm just softening my line. But I don't want the pants to be pitch black all the way, so I'm not going to add very much. And do the lines here in the middle. And then I'm going to fill them in with C6. And because it's so much lighter, it's going to leave his pants a lot lighter so you can actually see the pants instead of them being a big black blob. brush right over your line, soften that up. Same for this side. Let's go down the side, get our line wet, and down this side. Let's fill in the middle. And these pens are, I don't use them that much, so they're really wet. It works out great. Okay, like that. But see, they still have this little shiny area right here on the outsides and right here in the middle. And next, let's go do, let's do his shoes. As long as we have these out, only we're going to add C4. And I didn't put any blue onto his pants, but you can if you want. I'm going to start with his shoe. I'm going to start with C8. Put some of these away I'm not going to use here. So I'm going to start with C8, and for his shoes, I colored his shoes a dark, the gray color, this inside part right here where his laces are, and then his soles and this little spot right here on the front. So I'm going to start with my C8, and I want it to be darkest right here underneath of his pants cuff on this shoe. And then I'm going to grab C6, and I'm going to brush that out just a little bit, because I still want to be able to see the laces on his shoe. And then I'm going to grab C4. I'm just going to fill that in. Only I'm going to color up towards the C8 that we laid down, and it's going to kind of push it back up, all those colors, and lighten it up just a little bit. And we're going to do the same thing for his sole, so we'll grab C8, and I'm going to do that just a little bit right next to his pants cuff. And I'm going to do just the bottom, and as long as I'm doing it, I might do this side too. It's got just a little bit of his sole showing over there. And then we're going to grab C6, just lightly brush that line, soften it just a little bit. And then C4. And again, I push it down towards the darkest color so that it pushed them back just a little bit. Like that. So there's Hansel so far. So let's go and do the inside of his cape next. Alright, so the inside of his cape and his shoes are going to be R89, R39, R37, and R35. So I'm going to start with R89, and I'm going to lay down on my cape where I want it to be the darkest, and I'm going to start over here on this little one first so that I don't stick my hand in this side and get stuff on it and then move it around. So I'm going to start with my R89 right next to the edge of his cape, and then R39, and I'm just going to lightly add a little bit. And this isn't a very big space, so you don't want to use a whole bunch, but just a little bit, enough to soften that line. And then R37. And again, this is a small space, so add just a little bit more. And then I'm going to fill it in with R35. And by doing that side, then this side I don't have to worry about getting my hand in there. So next we'll go do this side. So again, we're going to go back to R89. And I want it to be dark right along the top of his sleeve. So I'm going to put just a little bit on there. And then R39. I'm just going to lightly go over that line just a tad. This is even a smaller area. So, but if you don't use all the color, that's fine. You can always start with, and this is R37. You could always skip the very darkest one and then go from, use the three that are left, or you could just skip this last one, which is R35. Okay, and we'll go down here to the bottom of the cape, and we'll start with R89. And I want it to be darkest right here underneath of his arm, so I'm going to go ahead and I want it to come down just a little bit more, so I'm going to go ahead and flick right away from his arm. And I'm going to try not to paint his shirt, because if I paint red on there, I'm never going to get that off. This one's way too dark for removing. And then I also want it to come away from his shirt over here. So I'm going to carefully go by that. I think I'll brush this down just a little bit more. Like that. And then I'm going to grab R39. And I'm going to go over the top of that one. So you want to brush onto the color you already laid down just a little bit. Pull it down. And blend your line. And now I'm going to go back over it because I didn't blend it very good the first time. So I'm going to go back over it a second time. And then we're going to get R37. And again, you lay down on top of your R39. And being careful around the edges, because once you go out of the lines, you're never going to get this red off. And then I'm going to fill in that little bit at the bottom with R35. And mine's still looking a little bit patchy, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this R35 and I'm just going to brush all the way down. Being careful, trying not to go outside the lines. Like that, and that blended it out just a little bit better for me. And then we'll go down here, we're going to do his shoes too. So we're going to start with the R89 for the darkest. So I want it to be darkest right next to his pants right here. And then I want it to, his pants on this side to cast a shadow, and along the bottom. And same for this side. And then R39, and you're just going to add just a little bit more on top of that. Just add a little bit to your line. And R37. And this shoe's not going to make it to R35. I'm going to fill it all the way in. If yours does, that's great. You just use a little bit smaller touch than I did on that one. And I'm going to go across the top of that part right there this time. And then I'm going to fill it in with R35. Blend those all together just a little bit more. Like that. Now let's go do his shirt. Okay, so his shirt, I want it to be white, but I still want to have some shadows, so I'm going to use C1 for that. And to add shadows, I'm just going to take my C1, and I'm going to add a little bit of a shadow underneath of his chin, onto his shirt collar. And then I want his shirt to have a shadow that runs down the side where his cape would be, so I'm going to go ahead and do that, like that. And then I want his collar to cast a shadow, so I'm going to go ahead and put a little bit underneath of his collar. And then his sleeve would have a shadow underneath the bottom, so I'm going to make a line on the bottom of his shirt. And I'm going to bring this shadow on his coat, on his shirt, kind of around to where this line is right here. And then for the skull, I'm just going to give it a half of the skull right around like that. And that way his shirt will still be white, but it'll have some shadows in there to give it a little bit more definition. Alright, next let's go ahead and add some shadows around the outside. And for that I'm going to use W1, W0, W00, and the colorless blender pen. So I'm going to go ahead and start with W1. And I wanted it to look like it was kind of outside duskish, so that's why I picked these colors. So I'm going to start down here at the bottom, and let me zoom in just a little bit. And I'm going to take my W1, and I'm just going to lay it down next to his pants, and I'm going to brush out just a little bit. Go along the bottom of his shoe down here. And I'm going to do that all the way around. I'm going to be careful not to get it on his shirt. I'm going to do the same thing around his cape. I'm just going to go with a line that because it's too hard for me to feather going that direction. And then I'm going to do the same thing up here. Just going to give it a little bit. All the way around his body here. And I try to be careful going around on this red because again you can pick some of that up on your pen and then move it around. Then I'm going to flip it over and I'm going to do this side. Go up this side of his cape. And go up here by his head, and remember, be careful with the red. I try not to touch it too much because I don't want to pull any of that red with my pen and get it into my background. Around his little curly Q up there just a little bit. Okay. And then I'm going to pick up a W0 and I'm going to go back down here where I started and I'm going to lay it down on top of my W1 and I'm just going to flick out some more. Pull more color out, and I'm going to do that all the way around. And I'm not being very neat, I'm just pulling it away from his body. I'm going to do the same thing all the way up, get up here by his face. At least now I don't have to be so careful because I'm not going to touch that red. Then I'm going to flip him over and come up from the other side. I'll put my pen down right on top of the W1 and flick away from that out here into my background. Oops. So I added just a little bit more color, and then I'm going to grab W0. I'm going to go back down here where I started, and I'm going to lay it down on top of the W0. So I've got W00 now. And I'm just going to, I think I'll actually lay it down on the W1 just a little bit and push it out further than the W0 was. And you want to go all the way around. And turn it over. I'm going to do up from the other side. Go up by his cape. Oh, and see right there is a nice little example of where I touched red and then touched the paper. There's some red ink. So you might consider coloring the red part or his hair last, so you don't get it all over the place. Or see, and I touched the red there. I got some more in the background there. Oh well, it's gonna have red now. All right, so then we're gonna move to our Zero colorless blender pen. And I'm just going to take my colorless blender pen and I'm just going to circle and go over that whole area that I just laid those three colors down on. Remember, be careful going around by your red or you're going to pick some up. All the way around. And I kind of push mine out so that it's it goes past the colors I laid down. So it's out here. The colorless blender ends up out in the space where there was no color to begin with. I go all the way around this way. And get up here by his cape, around his head. Get up here just a little bit. See what we can do with this red I accidentally got in there. Squish that around. Dilute it a little bit. But see how it just kind of adds a little bit of a shadow around him? Just kind of makes him look like he's outside. So let's zoom out. So that is our Hansel. Now let's put the card together. Alright, so I have my kit here, and I got all my parts, so let's dump some of these off. And I'm going to try not to lose anything, because those bats are really small, so try not to lose those. So you're going to start out, you have your base, and I'm just going to set that over here so I don't get anything on it. And then I'm going to grab my piece of black matting piece, and see there's one of those little dinky bats, that over here so I don't lose that. And I'm going to grab this piece with the triangles or the diamonds on it, and I'm going to attach that to my black piece. So I'm going to go ahead and do that now with whatever your favorite adhesive is. I'm just using my tape runner. I'm just going to attach that. And this one has a nice little owl right there, so I'm going to make sure he's pointed up. Okay, then next we have this little piece. So with the dots, I'm going to attach that. And that one's kind of set kitty corner here, so let's go like, that looks pretty good. And then we have this great piece with the purple on it, and that one's kind of catty corner too, so let's put some glue on the back of that. And that one's kind of cattywampus over here, just like this. Okay, before it gets too bulky, I'm going to go ahead and attach it to my card front, because I'm not going to have anything that goes around the back of this, so it's okay to hook it on. So let's go ahead and attach that. It's easier for me to do my tape on the back if it's not too bulky yet. And you're going to line that up. That. Alright, so let's go ahead and what else we got? Let's attach our colored picture to our mat. So I've got my colored picture. I'm just going to glue him onto the mat piece. Like that, and he is going to go. I'm not going to attach him yet because I want to get my little fence pieces out. So I've got my little fence pieces, and when I cut the little fence pieces out, I left some extra on here, so you could trim them off to whatever size you wanted. Like this side over here only has 3, so I'm going to cut this little section right here off. And then I want it to have these little sticks right here left on, so I'm going to trim this piece off, this end piece right here. I'll cut that off. And then on this one, there's 2 pieces, so on this one I want to use, I think I'll use these 2 right here. So I'm going to cut this little thing off. And then again, I want it to have the little wooden pieces at the end, so I'm going to trim off these parts like that. Stick those over here. Okay, so I got my little fence pieces, and then I want this fence piece to kind of pop up a little bit. I'm going to put a pop dot behind it, so I'm just going to fold it right here at the fence line, and then I'm going to take this side and fold this side down like this, so I can put a little pop dot underneath it there, and it's kind of popped up a little bit. And then same for this side. I want this middle one to be popped up on a pop dot a little bit, so I'm just going to use the little wooden bench parts that are in here to give it a little bit more dimension. So I'm just going to crease those just a little bit. That's why I didn't attach him down, so that I could make room for my fence. So I want this fence to end up resting on him, so that looks like a pretty good fit, maybe like that. And then this side, I want these end pieces to end up on the edge of the black, or the diamond piece, but still not cover up him. So that looks pretty good right there. So I'm going to slip him out, and I'm going to attach him. Because I know approximately where I want him to be. So I want him to be approximately right here. So we're just going to stick him down. And then on these fence pieces, I'm going to put a little bit of glue behind this one. And then on this one, I'm going to put a little bit on the end, a little bit of glue on the end pieces. And stick those down. Like that. And then I want the fence, like this piece, to be popped up a little bit, not fall down, so I'm going to get a little pop dot out. And I'm going to stick a pop dot behind him on the back there. Whoops. And then I'm going to stick the pop dot to the front of the card. And the same for this little piece of fence on this side. I want this one to stick up. So I'm going to stick a pop dot behind here. Just so it can't fall down. Like that. That gives it a little bit of dimension there. Okay, then that leaves us with my saying. So for my saying, I made it so it had like a little, it's popped up underneath right here. So I've got the next size up pop dots. So I'm going to put one of those behind my saying. I'm going to put it behind the happy part. Like that. And then I'm going to go ahead and put some adhesive on both ends so that it will stick down to the paper, not pop up. And then you're going to decide where you want your happy haunting to go. And I'm going to say right here. So I'm going to put the pop down first, and then I'm just going to kind of squish it. I want it to kind of roll up a little bit, so I'm going to give it a little bit of a push it so it goes up. Like that. So it looks like it kind of rolls. It's got a little hill right there. And then you're going to take your bats and you're going to attach those wherever you would like those to go. So let's see here. Oh, and it looks like my way into the room to do the video, I've lost some of my bats on the floor. So we're going to do without those right now. But you should have 6 bats. So like I said, be careful when you're transporting your card that they don't fall out. I was just toting mine on a piece of paper and they fell off evidently on the floor somewhere. So I'm going to take my bats and you're going to take your adhesive glue and you're going to stick a little bit on the back. And I've kind of popped their little wings up just a little bit, and you're going to stick these wherever you would like for them to go. Maybe one up here. Like that. Alright, so I went and found some more bats and attached those onto the card, but I've got one right here, right here, right here, right here, right there, and then this last one's right here. But that is our October kit for the month. You can pick that up over at the store. Thanks for joining me. We'll see you next month. Have a great day.